As a PlayStation, Switch, and PC gamer, I've had all my bases covered for years when it comes to RPGs. In fact, I can't remember the last time I couldn't play a game due to hardware restrictions. I mean, it's not like Xbox has been pumping out RPG exclusives. This all changed when Fantasian was first released back in 2021. Not only did this require a subscription to Apple Arcade, but also an Apple device. It took me about 2 seconds to start charging my dusty old iPad to experience the latest and possibly last JRPG from Final Fantasy creator Hironobu Sakaguchi and legendary composer Nobuo Uematsu. I was pumped until I realized that my iPad was too old to get Apple Arcade, reinforcing exactly why I haven't touched Apple products in years. Fantasian would be the lost JRPG for me, the one that I couldn't play without forking out hundreds for a new Apple product, and that is why I was so excited when Fantasian was finally released from Apple jail over 3 years later as Fantasian Neo Dimension. Was it worth the wait? Well, having finally completed my 70-hour-odd journey, I have a lot of thoughts about this one. Some good and some not so good. Before we get into the review, if you liked this video, it would help me out a lot to hit that like button and sub for more JRPG content coming soon. Alright, let's get into it. The most notable visual feature of Fantasian is its unique approach to its backgrounds. Fantasian's environments are created using real-world diorama models which are scanned into the game, and just looking at these handcrafted sets is incredible. There is so much detail here, and this really gives these locations a truly unique feel and reminds me of the pre-rendered era of the 90s. The big difference this time being that the camera actually moves to follow the characters, providing different points of view from the same environmental model. I found myself exploring everywhere because certain things like treasure chests may not be visible from one angle but revealed when the camera moves. While I am truly impressed in what was achieved here, this diorama style does come with a few issues. These constant camera changes often gave me motion sickness, and I'm not one to suffer from this. When you change angles, the direction controls are also impacted, creating many instances of running in the wrong direction after a camera switch. In terms of the graphical quality, the game is very hit and miss. As I mentioned, the level of detail is impressive, but up close, the background textures look atrocious. Something that is the complete opposite to atrocious is Nobuo's soundtrack. This will apparently be the final large project that he'll ever work on, and safe to say, he went out with a bang. Also worth noting is that you can play battle music from past Final Fantasy games, and it was great listening to these masterpieces once again. Fantasian is a game of 2 halves, and this is because it was originally released in 2 installments 4 months apart. The experiences here are very different, and those who like the style of one part may not like the other. Part 1 is all about storytelling. The narrative is linear, there is a lack of exploration, there is little to no RPG upgrade mechanics, and the difficulty is very easy, even on hard. Part 2 is much the opposite. The world finally opens up, allowing you to choose the order of narrative progression. There is a load of optional things to do to benefit your party. There is a brand new skill tree system, and the game can be brutally hard, even on normal mode. Seriously, this game is not for casual gamers. It's just crazy how different both parts were, and for this reason, I'm going to be frequently referring to this divide for the remainder of the review. Personally, after the first part, I was thinking, is this really it? Aside from the story and characters, everything was so easy and simple, but then part 2 hit and I was finally hooked. But that's just me. I know a lot of other people liked part 1 more, so I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. So, what's the story all about? Fantasian follows a young man named Leo who wakes up having lost his memories. On his quest to learn about himself, he and his companions discover a mysterious mechanical infection that is spreading throughout the land, corrupting its inhabitants and environments. I thought the story was solid, especially through the first part of the game when we were introduced to the characters and the main conflicts. There are some strong moments, many of which are presented through narrated text and still images of characters' memories. I'm not usually a fan of this, but here they were well written and usually engaging. After about 20 hours, I hit part 2 and the storytelling style completely changed. Without spoiling anything, Leo needs to explore the world, find his companions, and then pursue a number of leads relating to the game's major conflict. This kinda reminded me of hitting Grand Pulse in Final Fantasy XIII and how you're suddenly let off the chain and given freedom. Most of this story can be done in any order, and I had a blast jumping from one objective to a side quest back to another objective. The freedom and the multitude of things to do in the second part made for some of the best times with the game. Just like many other aspects of the game, the combat evolves significantly from part 1 to part 2. For the first 20 odd hours, we have a simple turn-based system. You'll take 3 characters into battle and defeat your enemies through basic attacks, skills, and items. The major consideration to the combat is exploiting elemental weaknesses and selecting skills to hit multiple targets. The fact that some characters can actually curve their magical spells was a really nice addition here. And that's all there is to it. During these early hours, things were very simple and didn't require much thought at all. Up until the final boss of part 1, I was absolutely destroying everything on hard mode with ease. And then the shift happened and this combat system evolved. The major new addition in part 2 is the use of tension abilities which can be activated after the shared gauge is filled. These can do a range of things such as decimating all enemies on screen, completely healing your party, or in Easy's case, giving him several turns in a row, which was an absolute lifesaver. Yep, as soon as I hit this second part, I reduced the difficulty to normal as these boss battles turn from short and sharp slaughters to lengthy strategic battles that require a lot of prep. I mean, I've heard of a lot of people giving up on the game because of this difficulty change, so just be warned, Fantasian will destroy you. And while these boss fights were incredibly difficult and a bit frustrating at times, I will admit that they were very well designed, with each having their own gimmick that you'll need to work out. To add to this, you will soon have access to all 8 party members once you find them scattered around the world, and they can be switched in and out with no penalty. Each party member has their own unique tension move and at least one unique skill to use in battle, but a lot of these skills can be learnt by multiple characters via the skill tree, which finally unlocks at the start of part 2. Despite this, I was constantly switching in and out party members to take advantage of the current situation and to make use of their strengths and weaknesses. Few JRPGs have done such a good job in providing incentive to use everyone. If you like a good challenge and highly strategic turn-based combat, then part 2 of Fantasian has you covered. Perhaps the most unique mechanic in Fantasian is how it goes about random encounters. This is done through the Dimengeon, which sends your randomly encountered enemies into a different dimension. It's basically a stock system, and when it reaches its limit, you'll have to fight them all at once. This isn't so bad though, as you can collect power-ups and usually defeat all enemies without receiving much damage. The idea here is brilliant, but it wasn't executed as well as it could have been. For one, the Dimengeon feels so incredibly fast towards the end of the game, meaning that you'll need to spend 5+ minutes clearing it out every couple of minutes of exploration. To add salt to the wound, there is EXP scaling in place after level 35, meaning that a lot of the time, especially during the later stages, you'll be spending a lot of time clearing the Dimengeon for next to no EXP. This feels like a complete waste of time. At least you are able to pay a fee to clear it in one of the towns, but this doesn't help when you're in the middle of a dungeon. Good things come to those who wait, and Fantasian Neo Dimension is something that I've been waiting for years. Sakaguchi and Uematsu's latest and possibly final major project has a lot to offer, and depending on what you're after, you're bound to find enjoyment in at least one of the parts of the game. The visual style created by the unique diorama approach creates some outstanding detailed backdrops that really brought me back to the PS1 era, but unfortunately, this resulted in some annoying controls, dizzy moments, and some very low resolution textures. Something without fault, however, was the soundtrack, but I would expect no less. High five to you, Nobuo. The truth is, I don't think I've ever played a game in my life that has such a shift in its approach midway through the game, but I guess this is due to it originally having been released in 2 parts at different times of the year. I personally preferred the narrative freedom, the optional content, and the late introduction to basic RPG upgrade mechanics found in Part 2, but each to their own. Part 2 also introduced some additional battle mechanics that really stood out during the outstanding boss battles. Yes, they were as challenging as hell, but so strategic and satisfying to win. I also loved the idea behind the Dimengeon and its ability to stock random encounters. This was a great idea and works well most of the time, but became a real hassle towards the end of the game. Some people are going to love every second of Fantasian Neo Dimension. Some people might also like the first part, and some people will find more enjoyment in the second part. But whatever may interest you, I'll just give you a warning. You will be in for a challenge, one that is rarely found in modern JRPGs. What did you think of Fantasian Neo Dimension? Do you agree with what I said? Let me know in the comments below. This was Hellfire RPGs, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit that like button and sub for more RPG content coming soon. See you next time.